Values has always been very important to me because if we speak about financial services, I think the industry in financial services has got a reputation to it. And working with a lot of young professionals, I don't think a lot of people pay enough attention and give it enough thought in terms of what they partner with. Having been in industry for a number of years and having dealt with claims and having dealt with real life examples of where people had to rely on certain benefits, you start realizing the importance of the benefits in itself and how important those decisions are. When we also partner with companies, we've narrowed it down, I think, to 4 or 5 companies probably now. And one of those companies are Profmed. It constantly just stands out to me. They have the same values as what we have in terms of our business. A few years ago, one of my clients, a well-respected doctor, got diagnosed with breast cancer. At that stage, it was one of those life events that really just becomes where life becomes real. And I still remember clearly, there was one evening where her husband gave me a call and he said to me, "Werner, we really urgently need your assistant. My wife needs to go for a procedure. We need authorization." And at that stage, the medical schemes with Profmed, I picked up the phone knowing that how difficult it might potentially be to make this call after hours to get authorization. Profmed immediately responded. They approved the authorization immediately. She got a treatment that she does so desperately needed. And in that moment, for me, my belief was cemented. It was one of those moments where being the advisor, the company not only looks after their member, but also after us as the advisor. Because yes, a client partners with an insurance company, but ultimately the relationship is between you and the advisor. And for young advisors like ourselves, it's still building a business. We're in it for the next 20 to 30 to 35 years. Yeah. For me, it's important to partner with brands and companies that align with our values, that align with our vision. Because at the end of the day, if we're not aligned in that sense, we're going to end up building a business which is not going to be sustainable, because as you add on new clients, you're just going to lose those clients again when these real life events happen. Steve, we've seen over the years that by doing the right thing, partnering with the right brands, it leads to your company being solid. It leads to the company actually growing. The testimonies that comes out of that, you get referrals, you will have a client for life. Sitting here, it's actually a nice moment to reflect back on how our relationship started the last 16 years. Maybe take us back from where it started, Steve, back 16 years ago.
As you were saying that, I was just reflecting on that very first day, leading up to being gym partners, roommates, after roommates, working, doing vac work, staying literally in your house, becoming an engineer, working as an engineer for 2 years, and then just obviously always staying close, staying in synergy, always chatting to one another, being best mates, being one of my best men at my wedding, to where we are today.
A lot of people ask us and always say you shouldn't be working with friends and you shouldn't be working with family. How we've been able to build a business as best friends. And I remember, as you said, starting off as first year students, being roommates. I was studying BCom in law and you were studying engineering, and never in our world would we have imagined that we would sit here being in financial services and build a company. I think back then we always had the same values, we always had the same beliefs. We grew up in a household where family was very important to us. We wanted to build something significant and also serve other people. I think not only for our families, but also to give other people the opportunity to have a life of abundance. That's what led us to actually starting our team where we are now, where we can say, listen, we have to share this. We have to almost share this recipe and this formula, and more people should know of what it's like to be a financial advisor. Yeah. When I speak to some of the guys on our team, I always joke to them and say, it still amazes me that people don't put a lot of emphasis on the beauty of financial services when you go to varsity or when you go to school, and just giving back to other people and building this business.
Flexibility, I reflect back to your dad, that back then was and still is in financial services, and just always watching all the rugby games, always present, always there, and just aspiring to also be able to do that one day with my family. Having the opportunity, if my son does jiu-jitsu or if he's got a rugby game or whatever the case might be, I can be there and I can actually also help raise my son and install certain values into him, just the way that, you know, it was installed into us, into our relationships. And I think right after varsity, as we came to Joburg, just always knowing if at any stage we should start doing business together, never doubting your work ethic, which to this day is something that I would never doubt. I think if there's one person that I always say, yes, in a good way, we should try and be running partners, it's like, I know there's one person that's also awake when it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, still drafting emails, still sending reports and still giving feedback. I'm like, I'm so tired, but I can't go to bed because I know there's one other person that's awake that's
But
also
there was a time, I
reply.
remember at the early stages in my career, even it still happens to today, where 11 o'clock at night, I would send you an email and then immediately we would reply. So we would still busy grafting.
Yeah.
And it's important to have those principles in your business.
I'm not saying work around the clock, obviously, because of the flexibility in our industry, but when it gets to hard work, building something great will always be harder than what you think. That's probably the best advice I ever got. Reflecting back to the early days, working in and on the business, still seeing clients. Now you've got one advisor that's a little bit lost heart, obviously a little bit lost hope. He's going through a bit of a dip. And then you know that you've got that same challenges, but you have to get into a place and be able to try and build faith in this person and try and encourage this person and build energy in this person. Being able to do that with another running partner is an amazing opportunity. And again, just coming here this morning, reflecting on the last 16 years or so, what a journey. It's been amazing. I remember the very first time you approached me saying that you want to join financial services. And now I've been into the industry for 2 years and making it very formal. I'm like, our relationship is not that formal. Why are you calling me to set up a lunch meeting? Going into the lunch meeting, halfway through, it's like, you haven't told me why we're having the lunch meeting. And it's like, we're 30 minutes into this meeting, so I'm not sure it's coming, but I don't know what the punchline is. And then explaining that you're joining us. The very first thing I said to my wife when I got back home was, he's going to be good. There's this notion in our industry that you have to be a salesperson. It's absolute nonsense. You have to be able to serve people, help with needs, ask what they're currently doing, why they're doing it that way, and see how you can do it better. And coming from a law background, I'm not talking on your behalf, but asking questions, getting to the bottom of things. Why does stuff work in a certain way? Being professional in your conduct was all stuff that I valued and knew this is what successful people look like. So the first thing I remember when I got back home is, this guy's going to be successful.
And then going into when we said we're going to start building our own business, the day when we sat down, we said, listen, what is the goals that we're setting out for ourselves this year? We've always been keeping each other accountable, whether it's in business or whether it's in our personal lives and whether it's in looking after our health. And we were sitting down that day and we said, listen, how are we going to reach this goal? Because typically, as we know, all of us are being taught, you go sit down, you map out your goal for the year and you break it down to activities, monthly, weekly and daily. And we said, okay, we know what we need to do, but how are we going to do it? And we identified our ideal client. It wasn't actually that difficult because all we did that day is we identified a client and we said, how are we going to address this client's needs? We identified their needs, we built a solution around their needs, having in mind that we're working with real people. Once you've established yourself, there's many people that want to partner with you, many people that want to work with you. The importance is always to keep in mind that we're working with real people. It's not about a sale, it's not about a product, it's not about the gimmicks, I almost want to say. It's about working with real people and serving their needs and giving them the best possible value.
Yeah, and I think lastly, no disrespect if you don't have a formal qualification. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, coming from a professional background, you also wanted to render a professional service. And that is something that is a virtue to our clients, and that's something that they value, which there was also alignment. So we knew this is something that weren't necessarily represented in the market. We wanted to give a professional experience when you work with us, because we come from a professional background, and hence we thought, well, there's great alignment working with the professional clients, which then also sparked to the product providers that we've partnered with over the last, couple of years, last 5-6 years, and that we've cherry-picked and handpicked so that we can create the synergy between us, the client, as well as the product provider. So Varis, what is the most challenging message, situation that you have to portray to a client, and how do you do it?
There's two ways in answering it. It depends on the type of client. If we talk about someone that's been working for a number of years, let's call themselves a professional in their late 20s, mid 50s, even in their 40s, is to really have a conversation with them and identify a need and make them understand why there's a need in terms of that specific product, why they need to buy into that specific benefit which I recommended them to serve that need. That's always difficult, because not to come across as someone just trying to sell them a product. Yes. We often see it that if you've been around for a number of years, you would have received a call from an insurance agent or a financial advisor at some stage, and typically, unfortunately in our industry, the majority of people out there just try to turn you and sell you a product. So the most difficult thing is to come there with absolute sincerity to show them that you're there for the right reason. Identify that need. I've learned over the years that once you've identified that need, I just go back to them and I present to them what the need is. Even if the benefit premium is 3 or 4 times or even less, just go there and show them what the need is. So that's always difficult for me, to position yourself that you're really there in their best interest. The second thing is, once you've identified that need and they buy into it, you've shown them that you're really there to serve their best interest. If the solution then comes back from any product provider with some sort of counter offer, to tell them, listen, based on the information that I've shared, they might be excluded for X, Y, and Z, or there might be a waiting period applicable. That's always difficult, because now you have to explain to the person why they might not be covered in that instance, and to explain to them how the insurance company or the company in itself is looking after that. So that's always something that's difficult. First is to establish the need of the specific benefit to the client and make them buy into that need. And then secondly, once they've bought into it, depending on what the outcome is of the benefit, to then convey that message over to them again.
It's not a car dealership where someone wants a car, they come to the dealership because they're ready to buy. In our industry, you have to sell the vision. You need to retire one day, so there's a vision that has to be sold. And you have to sell the what if. What if something happens, you need this? What if something happens, you need that? If you pass away today, have you made provision for your children? If you should be hospitalized tomorrow, do you have a proper plan in place? So you have to sell the nice fluffy stuff, but you also have to sell the reality if something happens. And a lot of people have to be sold to, and I use the word sell because life insurance, medical aid, financial services, investments, you have to sell that to someone. Yeah. Very few people wake up the day and think, I'm going to take out a medical aid. Wake up and think, I'm going to take out life insurance. So our industry is still hardcore. You have to go out, you have to identify the need, sell the vision, but also sell the reality. What if something happens? Building a team makes me also realize that our people, when I say our people, the people that partners with us in terms of our vision and where we're going, and we've got a very clear vision. We want to have 1,000 advisors by 2032, and I want to put a date to that because I want to keep ourselves accountable, is they have to be aligned with that virtue as well. They have to be aligned with the virtue of, I'm selling the vision, but I'm selling the what if, and I'm trying to optimize that as best as I can in a way that will not jeopardize any of my fellow colleagues. You mentioned that identifying a proper need. There has to be a standard. Everybody adheres to the standard. There's a code of conduct. We've got a certain code of conduct that we've put together. Both me and you we said this is what we stand for. I'm also proud to say both of us, men of faith, this is what we stand for. This is our North Star, this is our guiding light. Okay? So everybody coming in, this takes preference. It's not what Werner said or what Stefan said or what John said or what Koos said. This is what takes preference. The business always takes preference. And I'm so thankful that our relationship is there as friends, that if you don't pull your weight, I need to be able to call you out and say, Werner, we've got a code of conduct. We've got a standard. You're letting the business down. It's not about Werner and Stefan, it's about the business. The business takes preference. So if there's one thing that I want us to focus on and that I would encourage each and every single person that's going through this journey, is the moment you start scaling. And Quentin Doman, our mentor, he's one of our mentors, said that the first thing, if you cut your hair with a certain person and that person scales, that person needs to learn each and every single barber in his store how to cut hair the same way. Yeah. Because you don't buy the hair shop, you buy the barber. Yeah. Same with us. So if I say certain things, have certain mannerisms, have certain styles of doing certain things, we need to try and emulate the successful stuff and catch it in a code of conduct, catch it in a guideline so that everybody can align.
As this team is busy growing at the moment,
culture.
We're getting a bit of a taste of the challenges that this brings in terms of having a team that's growing and as it's grown at the moment. And the importance of culture, something that we need to start focusing on, and how important culture is going to be to keep this business in its current form.
And culture is top down. Yeah. Culture is not bottom up, it's top down. So culture starts with leadership and it boils down to employees, and that boils down to your clients. Culture.
And being accessible. Just being a leader that's accessible and could resonate. Not just sitting somewhere making a call, and then when people's not happy with that call, just shy away and don't face any conversations that leads out of that.
So when we look at companies that we want to work with, partners, associates, we always say it has to be win-win. our code of conduct is win-win. It can't be I'm winning, Werner is losing, and the vice versa. It can't be Werner is winning and Stefan is losing. So all our relationships are judged through that lens. And one of the things we look at, we call it the triple S process, is simplicity. There has to be structure and there has to be synergy. So when you look at doing business with a provider, the first thing, simplicity, is ease of doing business. How easy is it to do business? And that's where the likes of companies like Profmed, Allen Gray, PPS, it's easy to do business. You can call someone, pick up the phone. There's a person that's also been in a position where they sit in front of a client typically, and they are in a position to help you practically. They also make it easy for a client, as an example, to reach out. For a client, when the phone rings, it's 2 times, it's 3 times they pick up the phone. So as a business owner, but also as an intermediary, you have the support of someone behind you. You have that simplistic support. From a solutions perspective, it's simplistic. For example, again, I have to make reference to Profmed here, because when I started doing medical aid, I didn't know much about medical aid. Doing a CFP, like medical schemes, I think there's one question in the whole paper, but it's like a very tiny, small section that is covered in the financial planning handbook. So doing medical aid, you knew about it because it obviously works in parallel with typical financial planning, but I didn't know much. But what I did know back then is Profmed had 3 main plans, and then they had satellite plans to the main plans. So there was your entry level, let's call it hospital plan, they had like a mid-range, and they had the pinnacle. So for me, as a layman back then, knowing a little bit about medical schemes, knowing what good advice looked like, but from a technical perspective, the features of the products, how to land a product, how to position something, how to render proper advice, it was easy for me. It was simplistic for me to potentially position something like that. The second one, structure. Again, I think this is the engineering background, but I'm someone that prefers structure. There has to be a guideline. How do we do this? What is the similarity? If Werner does it, it has to be the same way as Stefan does it. Because if Werner drops the ball, Stefan drops the ball. If Werner has a great experience with a client, Stefan has a bad experience with a client, then Werner messes it up for Stefan. And the same thing applies across our team. So everybody has to be on the same level. So when we look at companies, we look at what is the structure within that company, corporate governance, values, virtues that they live up to. If we are aligned and we've got a certain way of doing business, that is honesty, integrity, making sure that we do what's best, the win-win that I spoke about. We have to be aligned when we work with companies on the same principles. Win-win, has to be win-win. And then lastly, synergy. And I think we grew up in the PPS space. The first companies that both of us joined was PPS back then. And PPS operates on mutuality. So it's synergy. It's 1 + 1 = 3 because the profits are shared amongst the members. And companies like Profmed, PPS, they're unique. I can't use other companies as an example because they're unique. 100% internally owned. And the deeper I delved into the engagement and the conversation and the relationship with these companies, the more I realized that mutuality goes beyond just sharing in profits. Mutuality is the way they conduct business. It is for the members. The decision making is for the members, for the greater good. If one member has a certain thing, the lens they look through and the code of conduct that they look through is this in the benefit of everybody? Bringing me back to win-win. Is everybody winning as a collective? Or is it a win and the collective is losing? Which again aligns with the virtues. So the synergy that these companies offer and the way we look at things when we say we want to partner with this company, we want to partner with this company, it's always, is it 1 + 1 = 3?